hours. I think that'll cover us.
That's it.
Okay.
Only 8 hours.
They're going to cut us off after 8 hours, so this could be. We'll have to squeeze it in there. All right. Hey, everyone, welcome to Pro Photo Show. It's the Christmas episode for 2015. Gavin Seim here with a fun little panel, and we are going to talk photography. All right, hey, great to be back with one of our rare Pro Photo Show episodes. We don't do as many as we used to, but there's lots of good stuff to talk about. And just for those that are wondering, hey, where's the stuff in the podcast feed? There is stuff going on, so stay tuned to the Seim Effects page, the Photographic School YouTube channel. We're posting videos over there. You know, I love visual content, so I've been doing more and more of that this year. A lot of tips and things like that being posted to the Photographic School. But we like to get on here every now and then and just get a little panel together and talk about what's going on in the industry, what's new and exciting, share some tips, share some ideas, and just kind of really refresh ourselves and kind of invigorate our ideas in the photographic world. And that's what we're here to do today. And for our Christmas panel this year, I have myself, Gavin Seim. I have the infamous Gokhan Kukurova. Do I have that pronounced right, Gokhan?
You got the Gokhan right, but everybody gets my last name wrong, but which is totally fine. It's Chukurova. The C actually has a dot on the bottom. In Turkish, it sounds like CH, like Chukurova.
Very cool. Well, hey, it's great to have you on again. It's been a little while since we've had you on, and we're glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yeah, out from Chicago, or close there, too.
You can say Chicago. My studio is still in Chicago, so
Excellent.
You can say Chicago.
Excellent. Well, and all the way from sunny Florida with oranges in his basket is Jason Eldridge. Jason, it's good to have you back.
I am glad to be back, and this time around I am not sick, so hopefully I will sound a lot better in this episode than the last.
On the last episode, I think we only had to edit out a few nose blowings, so I think it was good.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm kidding.
Here in sunny South Florida, it is 84 degrees today.
It's snowing here right now, and I'm thinking, I'm actually looking. This is an exciting. We're actually shopping right now for the Super Camper 2, and we're going to be upgrading from the camper that we've had for 5 years and done. I think the Super Camper, which I've talked about many times on this show, I think the family and I have spent probably 600 to 700 nights in that camper since 2011.
Nice.
And next time, it has pop-out tent beds and things like that. So the next unit we're getting is going to be a little larger. It's actually going to have a bedroom for mom and dad and bunks for the kids. And it's going to be, we're very much looking forward to that. And then we're going to load it up with all kinds of solar and all kinds of off-grid awesomeness and photography and lighting and make some cool stuff in the coming year with workshops and things like that. So that's going to be exciting. And maybe Jason, I keep thinking you need to get an RV too, Jason, because when it gets too warm down there in paradise, you can come somewhere else.
That would be awesome. And that's my long-term plan, is to have an RV. My dad comes down here 6 months out of the year, so I get to see his nice big 38-foot monster of an RV with 4 slide-outs and all that wonderfulness. So every time I see it, I just can't wait to one day get on the road with that stuff.
Yeah, well, once we all have RVs, we can have like a super camper retreat. Because the thing is, what I've learned about most people that have RVs, and it's funny in shopping for RVs, even used ones, usually you find they've been used like twice a year. Because most people buy an RV and they never actually use it, which is foreign to me. Because I'll go spend a month on the road, and most people when they do use it, they go to RV parks, and so they're not really equipped to be off grid. And boy, for photographers, I've said this before, but it's amazing. I don't care if you get a big RV or a little RV, just make sure you can get it there and just get out there, skip the RV parks and just go into the wilderness because you learn so much about light. So that said, I love talking about RVs, but let's jump into the show and let's kind of just talk about the year in review. Let's share some tips and ideas. This is going to be fairly informal. We got a nice small panel today, so it shouldn't be too hectic. And let's talk about what we're doing in photography, what we're seeing in the industry, kind of what's happening with technology and how we're advancing. And then, as always on our Christmas episode, we're going to go into some really awesome picks of the year, and stuff for your stocking stuffers or just to buy because you can or because you need it. This is what I think we should work on some throughout the show, I think a few of the tips we should share is arguments. I've been listening to the audiobook of Getting to Yes and studying negotiation tactics a bit more, and I'm always kind of studying communication. I go to my Toastmasters club, and I think we should share some tactics for how you get your wife to say yes to that new equipment, and there's some valuable insight I think we could share on that and maybe get some tips going back and forth. Jason, I'm sure you have some thoughts, but Jason's a genius, and here's why. Jason got his wife into photography, and she does a totally different side of it than you, right, Jason? So she does underwater. You guys are into scuba, and she does this beautiful underwater work, and we'll have to have her on sometime. But I think this is genius because you're like, what better way to make your wife want to invest in equipment than getting equipment that she needs?
That's it's been a genius move. You're right.
Credit where credit is due.
I've been trying for so long to get her into some type of photography. So as soon as she wanted a DSLR, I knew I had it.
You were right where you had her right where you wanted her, and that's the. You're way ahead of me here, but this is one of the chief negotiating tactics that I'm realizing. They're saying get away from the positional bargaining, find mutually beneficial negotiation tactics, and that's exactly what you did here, whether you knew it or not.
Right, and it's been pretty effective so far. I've gotten 16 to 35 out of it, a backup camera, and all kinds of.
Excellent. Yeah, and the beauty is almost everything we're going to talk about today is going to be a tax deduction.
That's right.
Tactics. It's all about tactics, gentlemen. Okay, so let's jump right in and let's talk about 2015. I mean, photography is a crazy world these days. And Gokhan, you're a little quiet over there, so we'll start with you. What are you up to over there, and what's happening in the photography world?
Oh, I was just listening to you, but it's been anything but a quiet year. It's been a fantastic year so far. And I don't think that's going to change dramatically last 2 weeks of the year. I hope not. Weddings, more weddings. And we brought on a couple of more photographers for the studio. And last year and a half or so, I started focusing more on the family. And as you might remember, we had our first child 16 months ago.
Right.
And it's been nothing but blessing. And
awesome.
So I do not photograph every single wedding we book, but I am still in charge of the customer service, to bookings, to album designing, and everything else other than shooting.
Right.
But I still shoot 10 to 12 weddings a year. Luckily, we brought on third large company as a client for corporate events and corporate headshots. Third large company meaning New York Stock Exchange caliber company. And what else is going on? My love affair with documentary photography has been growing non-stop last a few years, but this year and a half it's been on fire.
Excellent.
It's been on fire. So I have a couple of big projects going on right now, and what else? We're about 80% booked for next year for weddings, and moved into a new studio within the same building, but nicer location in the same building. It's a 102-year-old historic Chicago building in a very, very nice neighborhood of Wick Park.
Cool.
What else? Bought our first home and just moved in, as I mentioned earlier. So it's been a terrific year, to be honest with you.
Excellent. So from the business perspective, I mean, I know for my part, I'm always involved in the business side, but a lot of what I do these days is traveling and teaching and making products and workshops and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always want to keep the perspective for the listeners balanced in terms of the state of the industry. And we know it's a hard industry. What are your thoughts in terms of what's working? What is the focus for you in terms of the profitable business?
Yes, definitely. That's a fantastic question. There is one thing that hasn't changed in business for hundreds of years, not just last 10, 20 years, hundreds of years.
Right.
There is one thing that has never changed: customer satisfaction.
Yes.
Attention to detail.
Right.
Okay, when I say attention to detail, Gavin, I cannot stress enough how important it is to remember somebody's name. I'll give you a quick example. Somebody finds our website, go on there, and then likes the work and would like to schedule a consultation, right? And
Right.
says, hey, my fiance Tom and I would like to come and talk to you further and get more information about your services. Great. So when these two come to your studio, you open the door. If you greet them, say Stephanie and Tom, that makes a difference, because say she mentioned his name once in one email. Sometimes I exchange 10 or 20 emails before they get into the studio, right? So, and say she mentioned his name once, and you greet him with his name instead of, hey, what was your name? You know what I mean? That makes a huge difference, because
Yeah.
it shows that you pay attention. And especially when you're photographing somebody's wedding, which is the biggest day of their lives until they have their first child, of course, it is a deal breaker if they are working with someone who pays attention to little details. So my focus has always been attention to detail and make them happy. Try to read what they are looking for.
Right.
As I mentioned, probably one of the previous podcasts you had me on, I moved to Chicago after uh, leaving 8 years of photography business in Minnesota, and I
Right.
moved to Chicago, which is like the second largest wedding industry in the country after New York. So that never bothered me, like, oh my God, that's a big sea, I'm gonna drown or whatever. I never was bothered, like, never intimidated me,
Right.
because if you just focus on what never changed and keep up on the news, like news gear, new software, new Gavin Seim Seim effects, and all the good stuff.
Right.
You know, I think that is the number one thing that's going to help everybody in the business, because it is not getting easier. Being
Right.
profitable is getting harder, because marketing is getting more expensive.
Right.
Okay? And also look at Instagram, Google Plus, Facebook, uh, the Knot, the Wedding Wire,
So much
blah blah. It,
noise.
it goes it goes on to the infinity.
Right.
So trying to find your own balance, where you should put your marketing budget, where you should advertise and whatnot, it gets even more confusing. So if you try out 5 different websites or magazines or whatever you choose to advertise on, if you try and say, okay, I'm going to test this and test that, you're losing time. Time is money.
Right.
You really need to study what works for others. And if you know who you are, that's a very key question. If you know who you are as a photographer, that's going to lead you to who might be your ideal client. Once you know that, you jump into the third level of search, where my client spends time, where they hang out, like online or offline, doesn't matter.
Right.
So once you figure this out, it's going to help you so much with where you spend your money, where you spend your efforts. But as I'm sure you heard this saying, the biggest advertisement is the job you have in your hands today.
Yeah.
That that
That's
that
great.
is the key, because my main goal is, if I shoot a wedding, that wedding will have at least 3 to 5 single bridesmaids. So if I can wow these people,
Future customers.
why should they look elsewhere?
Right. Yeah. And so once again, we're back to relationships and building that customer rapport. It's interesting to me, and we're faced in a industry like this where there's a lot of competition and it's a struggling industry. And I want to come back a little bit to, you talked about building your brand later on, but in particular, right now, like I said, I'm shopping for a new RV, and I'm kind of blown away. The RV industry, they're kind of all the same, right? They have different brands and different stickers, but they're even using the same layouts across brands, and they're cranking them out. And it's amazing what they produce for $20,000-$30,000, let's say. I mean, we're not talking about $250,000 motor coaches here, which of course get more into the custom range. But what shocks me is that they really, you look for the complaints, and the complaints are usually the same, and they have quality control issues here or there. But really, where the complaints get the worst is when the company doesn't take care of the problems. They don't deal with it, and they lose their relationship. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you guys aren't very smart, because you're selling this product, but you're building no brand loyalty whatsoever. You're not really, you're not taking care of the customer to the point where they respect you and they want to come back for more. And like in Seim Effects, I mean, this is one of my foundational things, is that I know that if I get a customer that buys Exposed or that buys our presets, they're going to be back because I not only make a good product, but they text me at 9 o'clock at night and they say, oh, I'm having this problem, and I fix the problem for them. I take care of the customer, and I think this clearly crosses over into what you're talking about, is build those relationships. And I like what you said about names. This is something I've always struggled with, and I'm really trying to work more and more and more on this. I remember one time, and I mean, this is horrible. I actually was in a busy wedding season back in the day, and it wasn't that I didn't know the bride's name, but I actually called her by the previous bride's name from the previous week or something. And I was so embarrassed. I mean, it's like, because I was just, I mean, it was one of those summers where I was doing a wedding every weekend, and it was kind of like, whoa. And really, I mean, we dismissed the name thing, and one of the #1 tactics you see in good marketers is, they meet somebody, hey, how are you doing? What's your name? Then they repeat their name, and they build a personal rapport with them, which generates, then they have something to work from. And I think that's huge, Gokhan.
Can you keep a secret in front of 10,000 people? I've done that too. I've called a bride with a former, a previous bride's name. I've done that.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
No. Trust me. When the wedding season goes crazy, like you're shooting a wedding and then you're trying to get those files ready, but you have another wedding and whatnot.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. Yeah. It's so normal.
That's cool.
But giving you, before you jump in to another topic, I want to give you a very good example that happened this year, actually.
Excellent.
This year, October 2nd of this year, I had the great honor of photographing the third daughter of the same family.
Wow, that's amazing. And you'll be coming into generational stuff here pretty soon.
Yeah, actually, the first daughter who got married, I photographed her engagement, wedding, maternity, newborn, and then we moved to the second sister and then the third sister.
Nice.
And it comes to that. You just take good care of them.
Right.
And
build that relationship.
Clients, exactly. They will be your ambassadors out there. What is better than having all these previous clients or, all these clients you work with go talk about you?
Right.
Next person will come as someone who already like you or already heard a lot about you. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. That's good stuff. Well, Gokhan, you might try turning off your video for a minute because you're getting a little pixelation in your audio, and since the video is not critical to what we're doing, let's try that and see if you sound a little bit better. I love seeing people, but Jason.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting a little bit of audio feedback from one of yours, so if you're not using headphones, maybe turn down your speakers just a little bit.
Yeah, I've got headphones on and my speakers are off, so
okay.
Hope it isn't me.
So in the topic, I mean, we're kind of doing our little business review of the year and talking about ideas, and I know that you're kind of coming at this from a different perspective over there in Florida, but what are you thinking about what you're hearing, and what thoughts do you have on all this?
Most of that applies across the board. And you're right. Your brides are going to talk about you. It's what they say that matters.
Right.
So it works that way in what I'm doing too, as far as working with the camera club, the presentation when I'm in front of people, and how I treat them, and how I bring more people into the club and continue on. It works that way with workshops as well. How you treat them when you're out there, the attention that you give to each individual as much as you can, and the emails that you answer and the phone calls that you answer, and the 50,000 questions that you get asked, and you wonder why in the world they're asking that question, and you answer them, and you do it with a smile on your face, and that makes a huge difference, because we were all there asking those stupid questions at one point or another.
Exactly, and because really they're not stupid questions. They just have to, everybody has to work through them.
That's right. And I've asked more than my share of easy.
Exactly. Well, and I think I want to come back a little bit to Gokon's point too, because you talked about knowing your target and knowing where you're at, and this is something I've been dealing with. I'm not really doing weddings anymore, but I do the wall portraits, and mostly what I focus on is I'm building my pictorials portfolio for future galleries. But most of my work right now is large scale to the photographic industry, especially this past year. I mean, we've really been expanding. Most of you, if you're interested in photography, have probably seen my ads popping up on Facebook. I mean, so we've been putting stuff out there, new workshops, new presets, new content, and so I've been building that side of the business a lot because I really love teaching and traveling and all that. But I think regardless of what aspect of really any business you're in, the idea of understanding who you are and what you sell, the more confident I become about what kind of work I do, the better it gets. And I think this is especially the case with photographers that are still kind of finding their niche. I mean, look, we live in a world where there's almost all photographers are part-timers, and the few that aren't really have a focus, and the ones that don't have a focus are going out of business. And you need, whether you do pictorials or whether you do commercial or whether you do weddings, all of you that are on the show that are doing well, it always seems that there's consistency. So whether you're Rodney Lowe or whether you're Gokon or whether you're Gavin or whether you're Peter Lick, there's a focus on, okay, this is what I sell, and now I'm going to find out how to sell it better, how to get people engaged in what I'm selling, then how to build those relationships once I get them in the door. And so often we have this jack of all trades approach, and it just doesn't work in this hyper-saturated world of there's a photographer at every corner. You need to be the expert at whatever you're doing, in my opinion. And you guys can disagree with me on this if you want, but I think if you're going to focus on weddings or portraits, or maybe both, but you need to do it in a way that shows excellence, because unless you want to be paid a pittance, you have to master your craft. I mean, you need to be good with your images. That's a given. So learn your craft, but then you have to really take that further to succeed professionally, and you have to master the relationships and the marketing and the presentation. And these are all things we've talked about a lot over the years on Pro Photo Show. And I think you got to really say, okay, what are the key threads to what I'm selling? And to me, it's your brand, it's your presentation, it's your marketing, and it's tying those all together into that process.
I agree with you. Once photography becomes more than hobby, if you want to make money out of it and if you want to pay your bills with it, you really need to treat it as business, just like Starbucks, just like your local plumber or whatnot.
Right. And I've learned a lot about business this year. I mean, we've done a lot of advertising online for our products. I mean, we're talking tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And so in that, I actually learned a lot about marketing in general from that, because when I'm in a position where I have to get these conversions in order to pay for these ads, I've learned a lot about presenting, about making sure that your content and your presentation works for people, making sure your site works. And I realize when we're doing, like, let's say wedding photography, the volume of traffic is much different, but the principles of connecting with your audience are the same. And by doing a higher volume reach where I'm making products and workshops and stuff, it's actually taught me a lot about interacting with clients, because I still have to maintain that customer service. I still have to maintain the interaction. I still have to maintain the quality. And if you look at, let's take one of the hardest things to make it in. I mean, weddings and portraits are bad enough, but people that are successful doing landscapes and pictorials, and this is kind of a long-term vision for my business, is selling wall portraits of landscapes and pictorials for my galleries. And the people that do that well understand what we're talking about here. Yeah, they have a relationship, they build a personal brand, but there's impeccable prowess in the way that they produce and present their work, whatever that work may be, and it all ties into bringing it all together under your brand. And your brand isn't, oh, my brand is high contrast because I put the slider way to the right. I mean, how many times have we seen people excuse their work by saying that's my style? And so do whatever kind of work you want. I'm not concerned about that, but the point is, a brand and a style is not simply, oh, I like high contrast, or I like color, or I like black and white. It's something that goes far deeper than that, and you have to really understand where you're going with it. You have to see what you're projecting to other people, and it comes down to the way you present yourself too, I think, and coming back to a lot of the marketing studies and communication studies I've been doing, and to Gokhan's point once again, and building that relationship, you need to listen. And I'm going to close out with this on this topic, and then you guys can add anything if you want, and we'll move on. You need to listen to your clients, and they need to know you're listening to them, and you need to listen to yourself. And this is huge, and I've got this year from studying my deeper speaking and communication and negotiation and things like that. And this is hard, especially for somebody like me who wants to talk. We have this term of, he loves to hear his own voice. But what I've realized is that people who like to talk usually are not really hearing their own voice. They're hearing the sound of their talking, but they're not truly listening to their words. And so when you're interacting with people professionally, when you're interacting with your clients, you need to hear them, truly hear them, and you need to truly listen to yourself. And I think that is a huge concept in terms of taking the way you present yourself in your marketing further. And I would encourage anybody. People usually ignore this tip, and it's to their own peril, because the people that listen to me on this one thing improve their business and they improve their social interactions. Go to a Toastmasters club or some sort of a speaking club, but Toastmasters International is good because it's inexpensive, it's informal, there's not a specific topic. It's a club where people get together and they practice speaking and articulation, and they have studies, and they critique each other in an informal, non-critical setting. And it's phenomenal, because if you learn to communicate better, hear yourself and hear others, it takes things to a whole new level. Anybody else have any thoughts?
No, I couldn't say it better.
Excellent. Well, let's move on then. We've talked about a few business things, and let's talk then a little bit. We're going to do our picks still, but let's talk about, in particular, innovations in gear and equipment this year. I mean, is there anything really exciting you guys are using, or any changes? Every few years we start seeing big changes, and I'm not talking about every new camera body or gadget that comes out, but what's happening in the industry from a technological standpoint that you guys find to be significant right now? Jason?
Well, for me, it's been kind of very unusual. Over the last couple of years, I haven't bought really any new equipment at all. I've just been taking what I have and going out a lot more often, which is a big plus. But what I see is like the mirrorless, the Sony. I see a lot on the Sony.
Right.
And Clyde Butcher even uses the Sony as well, and he's got a huge part of his gallery that's down here in the Big Cypress. He's got a huge part of his gallery now, these massive prints that were all done digital.
Excellent.
So even Clyde Butcher, who has
the large format guy.
That's right. He is evolving as well. He still shoots large format, of course, but I see Sony as being somebody that Nikon and Canon really need to watch out for, which could be good for all of us who are in the industry.
Absolutely. Gokhan, what are you seeing?
Well, couple of things. If Clyde Butcher is going Sony, that means the world is coming to an end. I always call them, Clyde has cameras specifically made for
Right.
him, like not just 8x10,
Yeah.
way beyond. So I call him, the extra large format
Right.
photographer. But just like Jason said, mirrorless is the way to go. It is at least the near future. Okay.
Right.
Um, and Canon and Nikon keep disappointing me in general, like where they are in terms of mirrorless
Right.
doesn't very impress me. And a few years ago, Kevin, I was saying this before. If I have a regular lifespan,
Right.
I will see cell phones producing billboard-sized photos. It's already here, and Sony definitely excites me. I actually am close to purchase an A7S version 2,
Right.
and it is very exciting camera. Even version 1 is incredible, but one thing I noticed that you don't get to see all these Sony cameras in Chicago in every store. So those local camera stores have certain deals with different
Right.
brands.
Right.
So they are either not allowed to or not interested in bringing every camera brand in the store. Not every store will sell a Leica.
Sure.
So long story short, I was actually on internet putting my rental order from lensrentals.com to get my hands on Sony A7S II.
Right.
And then I found out that one of the Magnum photographers posted a photo, and someone, there's so many pixel geeks and crazy people out there, found out that photo was taken with Fuji X Pro 2. It's
Hmm.
not even announced by Fuji yet. And Magnum took the photo down, saying that there's an embargo from the camera maker,
Right.
and will be announced January 15 of next year. So I don't know if you remember, I used to have Fuji X Pro 1,
Right.
and I am looking forward to see the X Pro 2. If it's a full frame, I will definitely put them side by side with Sony and see which one fits better for me. At the end of the day, I haven't purchased anything last a few years, anything major,
Right.
since I bought my D4. I was the second photographer who purchased a D4 actually when it came out. So when we do this as a business, we cannot buy cameras every time someone puts a new camera out. I buy my work gear with 3 to 5 years in mind.
Right.
Long
Right.
story short, X Pro 2 or A7S will be probably my next camera purchase, but not like just because I want to.
Yeah. Just
Whenever
because
a
it's fun.
camera whenever there is a need to purchase a camera, those two, if of course X Pro 2 is a full frame camera, then it will be in my close radar for sure. But I have two lights for studio in order. That is extremely exciting. One of my photographer friends brought to my studio when we had a little get together last week. It's called Pro 56K Photo Studio LED light.
Right.
Okay, and I can send you the link. It's $167 purchase.
Excellent.
It's a 100-watt LED light producing 600-watt equivalent of light. So
Wow.
why is this exciting? First of all, it comes with Bowen's mount. So all my studio light softboxes, beauty dish will fit.
Right.
Second of all, if I'm photographing a family portrait in studio, I won't have to wait for recycle of the flash.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
It is.
Now,
It
what's
is.
this called again? Give us the name, because I love LEDs, but I still have to have strobes because most of the LEDs just don't have the power.
Mhm. It's called. I'll let me open this link here.
Yeah, and Gokhan, why don't you, if you click at the top of your screen, why don't you try Xing out your camera, because you're having some audio issues, and I think it's bandwidth related, and better that we can hear you clearly than that we can see you right now.
I actually have my camera turned off a long time ago when you
No,
first
no, your camera's still
mentioned
on.
that.
I can still see you moving, so it's not
Really
off. Yeah.
interesting.
There, now I think it went off. There we go. No, you're still on.
Actually, that's the anyway. I'm not gonna rub it, but that's the government watching. Because
Don't get me started.
hey, hey, on my end it says camera is off. It says click to turn on.
Now, are you looking at the top of the Google Plus window or at your camera settings? Because in Google Plus, at the top,
On Google Plus. On Google Plus.
Interesting.
is it say?
Yeah, because I'm seeing them too.
Yeah,
Okay.
your camera's off. That's really weird because on mine it says there's a button that says turn camera off. It shows a camera with an X through it, but you actually have to click that to turn it off. So I guess we'll just have to make do if there's no way to turn it off.
Let me.
Anyways, we can. Why don't you come back to that light in the pics? That'll give you some time to find a link and make sure we're clear on the name so people can find this one,
Perfect.
because we'll wrap up with pics. And in terms of our technology review for 2015, I guess I'll throw a little bit in there too. And I think you guys are right. I've been in this same boat. I've been using a 5D Mark II for years until this fall. And I was looking at what Canon came out with, and I was excited about the D800, but I'm like, well, I don't want to switch, and Canon's bound to do something eventually, and Canon is really not innovating very well in their cameras. I mean, they seem to be putting a lot of focus on video. They're not innovating, and I think we're seeing a fundamental shift here. I mean, for so long, Canon and Nikon have been the king, right, in terms of the professional market, and I think they've screwed up big time because they are so late to the game now in mirrorless that the train is passing them by. And there you go, Gokhan. Now I see just your profile photo. So that
It actually reminds me of Kodak back in the day.
yeah, it really does. And who would have thought? I mean,
they didn't go that direction, and now where's Kodak?
right.
So yeah, they've got to step up a little bit and start innovating at least a little. Actually, at this point, they need to innovate a lot.
They need to really catch up. And for years, I mean, think about it. For years, we've been seeing all of this. I see that link there, Gokhan, so I'll bring that up for later. For years, we've been seeing this kind of stagnancy of they basically want us to buy a new camera every couple years, and they trickle out a couple little features. When you know they could include more, they just don't because they don't have to.
Yeah, like the menu system is still so archaic in these cameras, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and so suddenly enter Fuji, enter Sony, who's really doing the cool stuff with sensors. And so, a lot of you guys were here early on, years ago on the show when the Micro Four Thirds stuff was just coming out, and we were talking about it, and I would try it, and somebody else would try it, and it'd be cool, but it was like, oh, it's a nice camera, but there's no way it can replace my real camera, as we would call it. And there was no viewfinders on them, things like that. And so this year I said, wow, okay, I'm going to take a road trip this fall. I really need to see what's out there for cameras. I want my large prints to have more quality. I want to see what's out there. And so I saw people talking about the Sony. I really thought about going to the Pentax medium format, the 645Z, and I know a wall portrait photographer who uses that, and he says it's phenomenal. And so I started looking at that, and then I was led to the Sony A7R II, which just came out this fall. And I started looking at image comparison side by side. And I mean, I do my research when I'm looking into this stuff. And so I started looking at DxOMark sensor scores. And so the top sensor in the whole industry is coming out is from Sony. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I don't want to switch. I mean, and so, because I'm a Canon guy, I got all my lenses. And then I'm looking into the Sony. And what's secondarily really attractive about the Sony is that because of the way the body's designed and because it's mirrorless, you can basically get an adapter for any lens due to the depth of the body. And so I can put my Canon lenses. I got a Hasselblad adapter. I can stick Hasselblad. You can put Nikon lenses on it. And of course, you're not getting all the all the autofocus. Actually, you can get autofocus with your Canon and I believe your Nikon lenses, but for sure with your Canon lenses on the Sony. Now it's not as fast, but all this, it's phase, tons of autofocus points, tons of features in this camera, but the bottom line is what the images look like. And I don't know if you guys have seen some of my recent stuff, but I've taken things with my pictorials and particularly night photography, deep field stuff with the stars. I mean, I picked up this camera and immediately we went on the road for a month. And I'm doing stuff, it's not the camera that makes the photographer, but the technology here, they're pushing it so much further in terms of ISO and resolution. I mean, this is a 42 megapixel camera, and I'm getting print-worthy images at 12,000 ISO. And that opens up whole new worlds in terms of low light. And of course, Gokhan, you're talking about, I think, the A7S II, which is it's a lot less resolution, but it has enormous ISO capabilities. And so these things are doing 4K video. They're doing ultra high ISO. The electronic viewfinder is phenomenal. I mean, I was a little afraid of that because I love a viewfinder, but there's all this information. You can change the view modes on it. It's clear. It's responsive. And the camera is quick. Now, for the wedding folks, I don't know if you're going to buy a Sony A7R and put a Canon lens on it and get quite the speed. I think if you put the OEM lenses for it, you will get the speed.
I think for me, that's the main reason why I haven't switched. It's not because I no longer do weddings. I think the last episode, I was the night before a wedding. It was going to be my last wedding. That one went off great. Bride's happy. They're thrilled with everything they got, and that's the last one I plan on. But I also shoot some sports on the side, kids hockey, that kind of stuff, and that focus has really been the kicker for me. I love the high ISO. You need that as well, but I need that very rapid focus. And honestly, if it wasn't for that, because everything I do now is landscape, and since the mountains aren't going anywhere, or the trees aren't moving too much, I don't really need that rapid focus. And if it wasn't for that little side bit, I might very well sell my Nikon stuff and go Sony. And I'm still considering.
I think you saved yourself a good chunk of money by buying Sony instead of the Pentax, even though the results from Pentax look amazing. But Sony is up in there. Especially, Gavin, for your kind of photography. I mean, you're not photographing a lot of like fast sports or whatnot, so you don't need that top of the line focus speed. When Nikon announced D4, and when we found out it was 16 megapixel, I was disappointed.
Right. It's like, come on, this isn't 2005 anymore.
No, I mean, I was really disappointed in a different way. I was really hoping that it would be, again, another 12 megapixel camera, because for us wedding photographers, 8 megapixel, 8 good pixels, so 8 million good pixels is what we really, really need. And hope you visit us in Chicago one day. I have a 50 by 60 print on my studio walls, made from a 9 megabyte but well worked file. So I have photographers who come and shoot with me weddings with me, shooting D810.
Sure.
Huge files.
Well, and I differ with you a little bit on this, because I'm sure you're getting beautiful work. I know you are, but being a big print guy, even for my weddings, to me the huge files are incidental. I mean, hard drive space is cheap, and so I want, we came from the medium format world in weddings, and we downgraded to essentially 35 millimeter resolution. And to me, I don't like that downgrade. So I know it works, I know it looks beautiful, but I wouldn't want to shoot a wedding with less than 20. That said, I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, I know the quality's fine, but seeing, I mean, gosh, what I can do with 20, 30. I mean, the 42 megapixels on this, just give me more and more resolution, because I know you can make, I'm serious, because, I mean, look, I got a 46 canvas I'm looking at here in the studio right now that was done on the old 30D, which was 8 megapixels, and it's beautiful, but you show me a 50, 60 inch done on an 8 megapixel next to a 50, 60 inch done on a 30 or 40 megapixel, and they're both great images, I will tell you instantly which one is the 40 megapixel. And so to me, the extra bump in quality, as long as I can keep up, as long as the speed's there, hard drive space. Now that I'm a video guy too, the hard drive space of a still image is so incidental to me because shooting 4K video, I'm using so much space that it's just ridiculous. I'll shoot for a few minutes and I have 5 gigs worth of data. Anyways. But I think Sony's onto something with this new one because when you use less resolution, which is why it makes sense that you're looking at like the A7, I believe A7S2. I wish they were clearer on the videos. But it's 12, isn't it? And you can do ISO 400,000 on the thing.
Actually, yeah, I follow this really closely. I checked online almost every single day to find out when I would be able to see a comparison from images between the A7S and A7S version 2.
Right.
And yes, both video and photo, there is a noticeable difference and improvement on the new version, even though it is the same 12 megapixel sensor. I remember a photographer friend in Chicago traveling to Africa took a picture with his A7S at 80,000 ISO. Right. When he was over the ocean in pitch black. It wasn't pitch black. It was a very clear image. Right. Now we're reading Nikon D5 rumors for early 2016. They're talking about 1 million ISO.
Well, they better do something to jump ahead because all the other guys are kind of beating them to the punch here. So.
Still running around, I think 20 or 21 megapixels. That's is my understanding so far on it. So they're not jumping a lot there.
Not a lot.
Right. Well, and admittedly, to keep the ultra high ISO, they kind of find this balance. But I'm just posting a link, and I'll post this in the show notes, and you guys can find it at seimfx.com on the blog, because that's where I'm posting most of the content, new videos, things like that. It's just everything over at SeimFX these days to keep it condensed, with the exception of show notes for Pro Photo Show. But this is the War in Heaven, the Milky Way image I did this fall, and I've got some detail crops on here. And yes, there's noise, but I've got a test print at 24 inches sitting in here. I can print this thing probably 40, 50 inches on canvas, and it's going to be stunning. This was shot 10 seconds at ISO 12,000 at 42 megapixels. I mean, so the range that we're getting to, where these sensors are excelling to now, particularly on the Sony side, and the other brands, in particular Canon and Nikon, really have some catching up to do here, because they are crushing it with the sensor. And I think for the wedding photographer saying, well, I'd like to go to Sony, but the focus, if you're using their native lenses, the impression I'm getting, I mean, I don't know how many focus points is the A7R. It's actually has almost full coverage. It is, with their native lenses, very fast, and I'm getting the impression that it's as fast or very close to, or maybe sometimes even better than the Canon. Now, I haven't used it for a wedding, but of course, my Canon lenses with an adapter, the autofocus, is a little bit slow, but with native lenses, this thing has 399 phase detection AF points. Mm-hmm. So it is covered, and it's phenomenal. And so I don't like to, I'm not being paid by Sony. I've been a Canon guy for so long, but it was a little hard for me to go to a different brand, but I'm just like, Canon, you guys are not giving us the 5D Mark, 5DS or whatever, and that was up my other serious consideration. I was looking at the 645Z, the A7R2, and the 5DS, which is 50 megapixels. But what they really did is they added a ton of megapixels, but they didn't really advance the technology of the sensor. So it had more artifacts, it had issues, it was like they expanded megapixels without really improving the sensor. And I took the Sony, who I believe actually makes the sensor for the 645Z, and what it came down to is, well, the 645Z is medium format, way more expensive, $8,000 camera, whole new lens setup you got to go to, and it's a great camera. But I took raw files side by side, and that Sony A7R was almost equal to the 645 medium format. And I think medium format digital, I've been saying this for a couple of years, I think it has a future, and I'm still keeping my eye on it. But wow, I mean, the quality is just stunning out of this.
I was in New York for a convention, and right across the street from B&H, Leica had a little studio. They just rented out a space and set it up as a studio for the convention, right?
Right.
I put my hands on Leica S, their version of medium format. I mean, it's going to cost you, with two lenses, it's going to cost you about 40 grand.
Wow.
If I were to go medium format, if I had that need, I'll tell you honestly, I put my hands on the Phase One, uh, several different models of Hasselblad. I I don't think any of them come close to the Leica's medium format system. But I photographed weddings for about 9 years with Canon, and I know where you're coming from. Jumping ship and getting a whole new set of lenses and camera bodies costs you a lot of money when you jump.
Right.
I've done that. I've done that. And you know what? If these guys don't keep up their game, uh, and if I'm still in business next 10 years, I honestly don't think myself continuing with Nikon. It's either gonna be Fuji or Sony.
Yeah, because the truth is, they're costing the relationship because I don't think they're really listening to their customers. I think they're making what they want to make, and they're trickling out the new features so they can maximize the profit, and I think it's going to cost them big time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to listening customers, I think the best camera manufacturer out there right now, this is my personal opinion, is Fuji.
Interesting.
Yes, Sony and Fuji are today the top tier leaders in the industry when it comes to innovation and pushing it
Right.
even to the edge. But when it comes to listening to the customers, I read forums and blogs and whatnot, and Fuji really reads these blogs and they really consider. I had the pleasure of photographing historic mayoral campaign and election time in Chicago
Right.
this past March, April. And, you know, it was a first for me, so I needed a quick and a quiet camera. I had my Nikon with me at all times, but a lot of photos I ended up photographing was with Fuji X Pro 1. And thanks to my good friend another Ara Zakarian, another Chicago photographer, lent me his XT1. I cannot speak highly enough for that camera.
Wow. So what is Fuji's top of the line then? What
Uh,
compares to the A7R series?
right now, they don't have a full frame
Okay.
mirrorless, but XT1 is the top. And I can only speak for myself. The user experience, how it fits to my hand, how it's built,
Right.
how the buttons are positioned and everything. Hey Nikon, don't get offended. Fuji X-T1 is the best camera for me. The reason I actually don't own one today, it is not a full frame.
Right.
And not that it has huge downgrade on the image quality. No, I have 25,000 ISO photos from that APS-C sensor
Right.
still usable. But here's one thing. That's actually the reason I sold my X Pro 1. One of my very good friends from Istanbul, Turkey, sent me her grandfather's camera. It's a rangefinder film camera with 50 millimeter f 0.95 Canon lens on it.
Right.
That's a dream lens.
Yeah.
When you have something like that, you got to use it. And on an X Pro 1, it was a 75 millimeter lens, which is not my
Right.
ideal focal length when it comes to environmental portraiture. 50 millimeter fits better for my style.
Right.
So I think next camera purchase will be either a Fuji or a Sony full frame mirrorless. That's where
Right.
the world is going, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be that way, and I was a little concerned at first because we're always people are always saying smaller, smaller, smaller in the consumer space, but as a professional, I like the heft. I mean, I'm used to carrying a 4x5. I would be just fine with the medium format, and
Hmm.
so yeah, lighter weight is nice when you're carrying it. But I was concerned that the Sony it wouldn't be tough enough. It wouldn't be manly enough. It wouldn't have the meat to it. And it is far smaller, and the first week out, I think I actually dropped the thing. I knocked the tripod over, and it handled it just fine. But it's a very sturdy weather seal body. I mean, obviously, you're not going to submerge it, but what I found, and I immediately, after doing research, I ordered the camera and I ordered the OEM grip for it, the battery grip, because one of the biggest complaints is the battery life on it, because it doesn't have a very big battery. They're trying to keep it small. And also, I wanted that vertical heft because it's small. I mean, these are mirrorless cameras, and it's got a grip and all that, but it's pretty small. And so I actually love the battery grip, not only for the battery life, because it gives it the battery life it really should have for a professional camera, but also it's a lot, the depth is a lot thinner, it's still a lot lighter, but it gives me that nice feel, and it's very sturdy. And of course, at the end of the day, the reason I went with that is it was beating everybody in sensor mark, it was beating everybody in image quality in terms of rival cameras. I mean, you could argue that the 645Z is better, but that's a whole different category. You know, you can't really, it's up there with these professional medium format cameras, and that's hard to beat. I mean, for a $3,000 body that I can take all my existing Canon lenses on and strap them onto it and say, let's go, let's get it done, and it works. So for those of people that are interested, I don't want to talk all day about the Sony, but this is kind of what's happening this year, and if you want to go to seimfx.com/blog, you'll see some of the latest work I'm doing this summer, and you can, of course, also go to my Facebook page from there. But there's also a video on there for those interested, because this was lacking when I was shopping. I was unsure about the whole EVF thing. I actually have a video on my blog there posted to the Photographic School YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that, where I did a video of the inside of the viewfinder while it was working. So it actually shows what that EVF looks like, the information it gives you, that sort of thing. And so there's so much potential here. I think to a large extent the future is mirrorless, because we're getting to a point where there's really no need for a mirror. I mean, it just isn't necessary.
Not anymore.
Yeah. And so if Jason, unless you have something else to add, we'll move on, and we'll close out the show today with some awesome picks and give people a nice variety of things that they can pick up. But other than that, the technology is moving forward. I think mirrorless at this point, I think we're going to see mirrorless become the standard, and maybe I'm still thinking that for above that level of mirrorless, instead of the DSLR, we'll see the DSLR users go to mirrorless, and we'll see people that want something even more than that moving to medium format as it continues to evolve.
Agree.
Jason, any thoughts? Did we lose Jason?
No, I'm here. I just didn't hear any audio there for a second.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So, anyways, anything to add, or have we covered this, Jason?
I think we've pretty well beat that horse.
Yeah. I like talking gear, so hopefully people got some thoughts, because I know a lot of people are thinking along these same lines of which direction do I go. So we'll see what happens. Let's go into the thing we do on every Christmas episode. We always have a few picks, but on the Christmas show, the tradition here is to share things in all price points that are just cool. I mean, mostly photography related, but not always. Things that you might want to add to your wish list, and lots of them. So there's something for everybody and something for that photographer in your life. And before we continue with that, I actually do want to bring up that this show is brought to you by Seim FX and the new Power Workflow 5 presets. Power Workflow 5 just released now about a month ago, and this is the preset collection we've done now for nearly a decade. Ever since Lightroom 1, Power Workflow has been the go-to standby that photographers all over the world are using to just increase the creativity and speed in their workflow, especially for weddings and portraits, but really for anything. The new Power Workflow 5 takes that to a whole new level with what we call the Pixel Forge presets. And what those do is we've really taken modifier and additive presets to a new level in Lightroom. So you have this workflow collection designed for editing a wedding in hours instead of days, and just really managing batch corrections and then getting down into creative detail work all the way to output where you're dealing with noise and grain and things like that. But Pixel Forge is really cool because it's a set of presets that only targets specific modules within the develop module. So you can apply a preset and then essentially build your own effect from there. The goal when I make presets is always to get people that are more efficient and have more creativity. So you're actually more creative than you would be if you were manually tinkering in the develop module, which you should still do, but to not have people using presets that make their work look like Gavin's or look like Jason's, or to get that creativity going. And Pixel Forge brings that to the table, because now you can apply a preset and then you can say, well, I want to modify the curve, I want to modify the color, give me portrait color, give me a little bit of softening, and essentially you can build out from that and have infinite possibilities. So Power Workflow 5, you're really going to love it. As always with SeimFX products, it is guaranteed. And I don't think we've had one return on this new release because despite the fact that it's a satisfaction guarantee, people love this product. And you can find it over at seimfx.com/PW, and I'll also link it in the show notes. And of course, only for you Pro Photo Show listeners, you can get 15% off the already reduced release special with promo code PPS. So head over and check out Power Workflow. With that, gentlemen, let's go to the picks of the year, and let's talk about the coolest gadgets and gizmos and gear that we've gotten this year. We've already kind of talked about the A7R2. You know that I'm pretty excited about that. Let's talk about all the other stuff that's out there and go from there. So, Jason, do you want to start us off? Because you're a little quiet over there, and we need to fix that problem.
I don't think anybody wants you to fix that problem, but I'll go ahead and go. Now, this year has been about getting my hind end off the couch and out into the Everglades, which is not a very pleasant place in the middle of summer, but it's the best to go for photography. So my picks are going to really center around not necessarily just the Everglades, but make yourself comfortable. You've got to find a way to be comfortable while you're photographing, and you'll go more often. So that my picks are going to kind of center around that since I haven't bought a lot in the way of technology. So I'm going to start with Bug Tamer Plus Parka. It's a really nice mesh on the inside. It's not overly hot, although anything in the middle of summer here is hot. But it's long sleeve. It's got a way to cover your face from the bugs. And I've got images that if I could get it up on a website, it'd be great. It's images of my camera when I'm out in one of the cypress domes with probably thousands of mosquitoes crawling all over it. And I'm comfortable as I can be because I've got the parka and gloves and everything to be comfortable.
So it covers the whole work. So I just want to be clear, basically you are a bug tamer.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right.
Did you get a whip? Is a whip included? Because I don't know about
down here for mosquitoes.
I don't know about Florida, but I've been down Minnesota, down Barry Hell's way, and boy, the mosquitoes down there, they're not really mosquitoes, they're more like eagles that drink your blood.
That's right.
And I can imagine that Florida probably has that same thing going on. And boy, when you're getting eaten alive, there's nothing, I mean, aside from the potential disease and risk factors, it's brutal. And so this is actually a great idea for people that are getting serious out in the wilderness.
Absolutely, and it's lightweight. You can toss it under your seat in your car and always have it with you. And the thermal cells are also great to couple with those. If you're going to be standing in one spot for any length of time, the thermal cells work great after about 2 or 3 minutes in the same spot.
Yeah, I found that those work well too, and they run. Now, I'd imagine they probably don't. Well, if it's windy, you probably don't have as much of a mosquito problem anyhow, though.
Right, that's correct.
Gotcha. Now, who makes this? It's called a Bug Tamer Plus?
That's correct. Let's see.
Is it Shannon Outdoors? I see one on here on.
Yes, it's
kind of a camo-looking thing.
That's it.
Excellent. So you blend in too. I mean, you could be really you're like a bug tamer and like I don't know, like a stealth bug assassin almost.
Yeah, you're a bug ninja.
A binja. All right. So that's Jason's new title. What we'll do is we'll kind of rotate around here and we'll each throw out some favorites and get a nice little list for people to check out. So we'll do one at a time and rotate around so each person has a chance to be frantically looking through their Amazon purchase list or wherever it is that they buy their stuff and see what the coolest stuff is. So Gokhan, let's go to you. What is one of your favorite things? And just for the record, it doesn't have to be photo specific. If it's something that makes your life as a photographer better, throw it out there. I've thrown some pretty weird stuff out on this show before, so you're not really gonna surprise anybody.
Okay, so I'm not supposed to talk about my AR-15. I'll skip that.
Actually, you can talk. No, I'm okay with that. I'm just fine with that.
Okay. This year I got rid of my iPad, which I used a lot for work,
right,
and signing contracts and whatnot. And last year I switched from iPhone to Samsung Note 4, which was very impressive. And that led me to dump my iPad this year, and I got myself a Samsung Galaxy Tab A with a stylus, which is $300.
Okay.
And
excellent.
I am very, very satisfied with how much more I get out of it, and how um, much of a value for $300 actually I got.
Right.
That's probably number one thing I would say about this year's top picks. And I
You
have
didn't
a
find
couple.
the transition to be bad for you then. I mean, it
Oh, not
wasn't.
at all, not at all, absolutely not. Actually, in all honesty, um, you got to use what works for you. And I've been a hardcore, die-hard Apple person, especially with the computers.
Right.
And I've been an iPhone user since the first generation iPhone, and
Right.
but I tried to switch to Android a few years back, and it was definitely not a match. But now, I mean, some of my friends, even my mother, will probably disagree with me, but I think Android platform is way ahead of iOS. And
Gotcha.
again, you can hear that from you can hear different stories from different people. But for myself, I am very impressed with how it's working for me. This little tablet here is like just under 10-inch screen,
Right.
and it's pretty speedy. Yeah, very very happy about it.
Excellent.
Uh,
Well, and this is, I think, we're kind of seeing this same thing with Apple is a bit of a lack of innovation. I mean, yes, they turned the industry in a new direction, but the iPad is very expensive if you want to buy the latest and greatest, and you can get the same stuff for a lot cheaper. I'm still using, I got an iPhone 6s and I really like it. I have a lot of apps and stuff on it, but
mm,
I'm less into this, we have to have Apple because the other companies, and once again, we're back to competition. Competition is a lovely, lovely thing.
yes.
Excellent. Well, okay, that's cool. I will put all of these in the show notes. So I am making notes of these for our listeners, and you can go to profotoshow.net for the show notes on this episode. I'm going to throw out there a new one, and I don't use a lot of filters, but when I use filters, I filter. And my my new favorite filter right now, I've talked a lot in the past about the 10x neutral density. If you're not using neutral densities in the field, you need to be using neutral densities because changing the density changes everything. And this isn't an ad, but neutral density filters, you can just, in the middle of the day get those long shutter speeds. And so I use a B&W 110 for a 10x neutral density filter, and I've talked about that a lot. This year what I did, because I got the new A7R and I wanted to experiment with more infrared stuff, because now I have a 5D Mark II sitting there that I haven't really taken a photo with since I picked up the A7R, and I feel a little sorry for it. And I'm thinking of having it, because it's still a great camera, converting over it to an infrared. But in the meantime, I wanted to do some experimentation with infrared, and I picked up the Hoya 77mm R72, and I've bought a cheap infrared filter in the past, but I didn't quite feel like it was up to speed. And of course, when you use an infrared filter, you're going to get this really harsh red image that is rather hard to color correct, but it can be done, but of course works good for black and white. Now, bear in mind, this is like using almost probably a 10x neutral density filter. It blocks almost all the visible light, and so you're getting into very long shutter speeds. That said, with the A7R II, I actually found it relatively flexible because I could crank up the ISO. Here's how sensitive the ISO is on the 10x neutral density and the infrared. You can actually still see the preview through the live view and on the screen because the sensitivity of that sensor is so high. And that's saying something, because when I put a 10x neutral density on the 5D Mark II, it was black. I had to do all the focusing and everything first. Anyways, the infrared is really cool. Obviously, converting a camera over to true infrared, you can get the faster shutter speeds, and there's a lot more flexibility there. But if you want to do some dabbling in infrared, because it can make some really neat images, and I actually have a new image that I released this year that was done on the infrared up in the mountains, and it just really does do some really cool stuff. Kind of changes the world and helps you see light a little differently. So that's the Hoya 77mm R72. It's about a $70 filter, and of course you can get it in different millimeter ranges, but what I do with my filters is I buy everything in 77mm, and then I have step up and step down rings to do it accordingly, because 77 is probably the most common and easy to find size, and it's very versatile, works on all my lenses regardless of the format. So the Hoya R72. And we will go back to Mr. Jason Eldridge, the Binja.
The Binja. I'm never going to live that down. Thank you.
It's my gift to you this Christmas season.
This next one is the Power Tac. It's a flashlight called the E10 Spark, and it can go up to 350 lumens. If you're a night photographer, you obviously always have to have a flashlight, but if you're with a group of other photographers and it's night, that flashlight can ruin so many other people's photos if you're not careful and you don't know your camera that well. You can turn it on and kill everything. This one has a setting that you can take it all the way down to 1 lumen, which almost imperceptible, but will allow you to fiddle around with your camera and look and make sure you got everything set, and it won't interfere with anybody else's image.
Nice.
Admittedly, they're not cheap. It's about $60 for this little flashlight that you'll lose inside a week.
Well, and I think that's great, Jason. And by the way, again, this will be in the show notes, but I'm just looking at this, and I mean, I'm a huge flashlight guy. I camp. I'm out in the wilderness all the time, and so the thing we're always kind of competing with each other. It's like you measure your manhood by how many lumens you have, and what? You disagree with this? Okay, so, but I think this is great because I actually experienced this when I was doing one of my new images, the Nightfall in the Aspens, where I did a night photo of deep field stars, not star trails, but I did high ISO so I could get deep field stars, and then I did light painting on the aspen trees, so I got the fall color of the aspen trees with the deep field stars in the background, and I actually was using like a 900 lumen, or maybe it was my 3000 lumen flashlight, and it was ridiculous, and it was overdoing it. So I actually went back to a wider field of view zoom, smaller flashlight that was more like 600 or 900 lumens because it was too much light. And for working in the field, when you're trying to do long exposures and stuff and night work, which is when you need that flashlight, oftentimes you need a tiny amount of light. So I had this really bright light, and I would make an image, and I kept, like having to cover my hand over it as I approached the camera if it was doing long exposure or something like that, so I didn't just blow it out of the way and clip the image out. So this is a great idea to be able to adjust the power like this. Awesome. Okay, GoCon. Hit us with another one.
Another one. It is going to be Photics Strato transmitter and receiver system. Allows us to use TTL. There are a bunch of different brands out there. I actually had very bad luck and not so good experience with Pocket Wizard system when it comes to using eTTL. And hypersync and whatnot, and this thing worked every single time, and it takes just 2 AA batteries and plug it in and go. It was just hassle-free. Anyone can do it. Even a caveman can do it.
Very cool. And so it's this is both eTTL and manual then, and it looks like it has a screen so you can control zones and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can control zones and channels. And here's a good thing that actually I learned from my good buddy Angel Nieves. Actually, this transmitter will fire your Calumet receivers as well. It won't be TTL.
Right.
But it will fire them. And when I use off-camera light at a wedding, 90%, maybe 95% of the time, my use of flash is manual.
Right.
But there will be that one time or couple of locations that you will really need that hypersync. Yeah. Right. Not about being quick, but like using the hypersync. And, then this becomes very handy. Absolutely. Because if you're using speed lights, and if you open up to f4, f2.8 or so, then your speed light is not gonna just cut it. So, right. And a lot of times I bring on 300-400 watt lights, but it's not every place.
Very cool. Well, looks like it's about $400 then for a system with 2 receivers.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And so that's great. And I'm still using the radio poppers, and I actually favor the manual ones. The ones I use now, they make fully TTL, but I like the radio poppers with the manual dials on them. I like that organic control. But sometimes, yeah, especially if you're doing weddings and a lot of on-the-go stuff, sometimes you just need that high-speed sync or hypersync or whatever. And sometimes it can be handy if you're on the fly in a reception to have some more automatic control. So very cool. And I agree with you. I've personally never, I know Radio Popper. I mean, excuse me, Pocket Wizards makes some good products, but we've had some issues with reliability in the past, personally. So, okay, great. Let's keep it moving so we don't run too long here. I'm going to throw one out there. Speaking of light, Jason, I'm going to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum that you just went to, and I'm going to go with the Eye Your Life 32-inch light bar, which is a 13,500 lumen, 100 watt light bar. Wow. And this goes, you know what? Let's see. And we got, these things are like $100. And I put this on the front of my truck, and you can get for about $20 more. You get a little wiring harness, and I installed it myself. You got to have
this isn't a competition, right? It's not a competition.
Here's the thing, and I talk about camping all the time. When you're in the forest at night, headlights are not very bright. I mean, you're like shrouded in darkness, and it feels so good when you drive into the wilderness at night and you hit this thing. And I mean, technically, I think this is legal in Washington State to use as a fog light, but you don't use this on the highway. I mean, it's kind of aimed down at the ground, but you would not want to point this in someone's eyes going down the highway. It is a huge amount of light. When you can have your brights on and you turn this on and you don't even notice that the headlights are on. It so obliterates everything. You can be driving down a forest road, you flip this on, and the entire place all around you is just illuminated. It's amazing to have this kind of light. And there's certainly some, you could light a scene with your truck if you needed to take a photo. I mean, you could probably shoot at ISO 100 with this thing on a pitch black night. So there could be some fashion photography aspects. I have lit portraits with my headlights before, but there's a lot of light bars out there. This is an import model, of course, and you can find different ones with different reviews. But I found this one, and it had good reviews, and it was a reasonable price. And so we'll see how it lasts long term. You can certainly buy more expensive models, but I just mounted it right to my bumper. I just wired it in, ran the wire through the firewall, got the little relay kit that you can get to go with it, and it wasn't terribly hard to install. And man, that thing is so bright. And so I'm just I should have positioned the switch a little bit differently, because occasionally I hit it with my knee and turn it on, and I'm waiting for the day that I get pulled over because I accidentally turned this thing on a state trooper or something. But technically, officer, this is legal under Code 47 because it's below 22 inches. Anyways, you can check the laws in terms of driving on the road with this in your state and all that kind of stuff if you want. And I'm not meaning this for use on the highway, but boy, when you get out in the sticks at night, it's actually a safety thing for me, because when you're out doing landscapes and out doing whatever, portraits, whatever, and you're out in the wilderness, a lot of times it's hard to see what's coming around the corner when you get on a really dark night out in the forest, and this thing just illuminates everything. So check that out. And with that, let's see, who's next? Jason, I think it's you again. We'll make one more round here, and if you want to if we want to kind of rush through it, if you got 2 or 3 you want to throw in there, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with snake boots, and not necessarily because of snakes, although we have diamondbacks and water moccasins down here. But
no biggie. I mean, like the bug wrangler can handle those, right?
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. But these are really, they're great for that as far as comfort and confidence walking in.
Right.
But they're also waterproof, and they're almost up to your knee. The brand is Rocky. You can get them in different heights, whatever's comfortable, and after you wear them once or twice, they really break in well. But the fact that they're waterproof is huge, because, once again, it's a comfort. When you're out there and your feet are soaking wet, how long are you really going to stay?
Right.
And putting these things on, it gives you that extra little bit of confidence. And since I think 90% of snake strikes are below the knee, it's kind of a little extra.
And so what are these called?
The Rocky is the name brand, just snake boots. They have different kinds. They have some that aren't waterproof if you're not worried about that kind of thing.
I think Jason's our new comfort expert.
That's right.
Jason, go ahead.
I said it all comes from me coming up with all these excuses to stay on the couch and not go out, and so each time I would come up with something new, and now I have this huge list of items that I can take, and right. I'm comfortable as I can be, so I'm out of excuses, and I go more often.
Well, that's important, and especially, I mean, you're in the Everglades, so it sounds like I know you kind of have been advancing more and more about digging deep in there, and you're going to start teaching some workshops down there too, as well, aren't you?
That's right. I've got several this coming year. The first
Excellent.
one is going to be January 16th. I've got a 2-day in February, and then we're going to pepper them throughout the year, I think. Uh,
Very cool.
Probably not as many in the summer months as I would like to, because people like to be comfortable, and it's just not.
It's when it's 200 degrees, the comfort expert says, "Don't go out."
When you have to get a blood transfusion when you come out, yeah, it's not great.
Well, when I make it down to Florida with the RV, I'm going to stop and see you. And when you hand me your business card, I want it to say like Bug Wrangler, and comfort expert, and photographer.
Well,
That's
stop in Chicago on the way down to Florida.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we move on from me, the only thing I want to suggest is gear is awesome, and I love it, and I love to collect it. But start looking at the education side of it. Take some work.
Absolutely.
And it's not a plug for me. Take some workshops. Take a trip instead of buying a new lens, because chances are you're not going to get new images if you spend all your money on lenses and visit the same places. So take a chance.
Mastering the craft.
Yeah, that's right. Get some books. Start reading things that are outside your comfort zone. I'm reading one now on composition, and it's not anything that I would normally consider because it's sort of a light and fluffy book, but I'm getting a lot out of it because of it.
Well, and especially, I mean, going outside the genre, studying painters and stuff like that, because they've been working this stuff out for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there's so much to be learned in the craft from just buckling down. And absolutely on the workshops. I mean, check out Jason's workshops. I'm going to actually be doing some live workshops this year, I think, and so stay tuned to my newsletter over at seimfx.com for details on that, because they're going to be very limited. But we're planning some retreat workshops where it's actually going to be a destination, all inclusive. Like your food and housing is going to be included, and we're going to spend like a week out in the field. So there's going to be some cool things coming up, and buckle down on that education one way or the other. It doesn't have to be some expensive retreat. Maybe it's just going to the master photographer who's teaching a class or the conference.
That's right. And ask those. I referred to them as stupid questions. Ask them. By all means, ask stupid questions. And it's okay to say stupid, because sometimes they just simply are really dumb questions. Call me and ask me. The only reason I know the answer is because I had to ask somebody else. And at times you get the eye roll, like, how many times can I answer the depth of field question?
Right.
But, okay. By all means, call, ask. My information will be available, and email me whatever you got.
Here's what I've learned, Jason, in getting a lot of emails and people contacting me on the things that I teach, is that when the stupid question is asked enough times, I have to admit that it's not a stupid question, and I go make a video to answer it, and then I can just point them to the video. So, okay, Jason, GoCon, you got one or two more you want to throw out there to wrap us up?
I want to touch on one thing Jason said, very, very good. And you buy those expensive gear and you don't have any money to go see places and get that experience. Definitely a good thing. This year was the first year I did not teach in Europe. I've been teaching wedding photography in 2 countries in Europe. So because of the baby and whatnot, we didn't go this year, and I don't think I will go. I mean, I am actually making plans to take my kid on the national parks and do stuff with him.
RV time.
I'm telling you, I got my eyes on a pop-up trailer actually. Start slow, start small, and everything starts from somewhere. Now we got the house, we got a garage, and we got a half-acre land, and we're gonna build on this. So
very cool. Hey, before you do that, GoCon, maybe get in touch with me, because the pop-ups are really awesome. Although you quickly get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't want to be in a tent, or in fact, in some national parks you can't even use the pop-ups, and there are some out there that are very similar in size and weight that are actually hardwall that you might take a look at. So when you get ready, maybe get in touch. I'm a fanatic about RVs. So.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that definitely, because we actually go and put a tent. I love tents. I love tents.
Yeah,
so,
they are. Tents are.
But I'll remember that and get in touch with you. Speaking of snake boots, that reminded me of my battery heated socks back in Minnesota when we took sled dogs and go in the woods 30, 40 miles from nearest human being. We used battery heated socks to keep our feet warm in say 30, 35 below zero.
Nice. I'll find a good pair of those to put on the show notes too for those that want to try them. And you had a really cool light you wanted to put. Did you? I don't think you gave us the lowdown on that light yet, did you? Oh, maybe you did, but I'll put it in the show notes. That was the Pro 56K. You sent me a link of it, so I'll make sure it's in the show notes.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I think my next and last pick would be handmade wooden boxes. That's what we got in this year.
I'm sorry, did you say handmade wooden boxers, as in underwear?
No, wooden boxes.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, I thought it was like a I don't know, a European thing or something, but.
No.
Okay, so wooden boxes. Now, are these for presentation, or what are you doing with them?
These are for presentation. So when the client gets their high resolution photos, we put them on USB flash drives, or we don't put them in those very slow plastic $2 USB drives. So these will be with our logo on handmade boxes. That again, it all comes back to the business side. Shows the attention to detail and give that luxurious feel of it.
And where do you get these?
It's called I sent you a link. You'll be able to share it with your audience. It's called woodclick.com.
Excellent. Oh, here it is. Perfect.
Yeah. So very happy about it.
These are beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so they're well, they're not bad. They're in the $30 to $50 range, it looks like.
Yeah, and when you order, by dozens, the price goes down dramatically, of course.
Very nice. Well, what a great thing for presentation. That's cool. So wood boxes, that will be in the show notes, and it looks like it is woodywoodclick.com. Okay, excellent. And did you say you had one more? Or is that it?
I think you got the light. So light is the light is one of my most exciting.
Oh, this is on my list because boy, I mean, 100 watt LED is a lot of light. Now, what happens? And tell me, I don't know how long you've had yours, but
no, I haven't had it yet. I have it in the mail coming in, but I had my hands on. One of my photographer friends brought it to the studio to show it to me, and it was wow.
And well, 100 watts is a huge amount of light for a single unit.
And I mean 100 watt, but it produces 600 watt, 10,000 lumens.
That's remarkable. Well, that's phenomenal. That would take this to a whole new level because I've talked a lot about this year about how I'll get the LED light bulbs and use a photo adapter to put 4 of them, and they can be great for portraits and stuff, but they still don't have that same power. It's not the same level, and you can't mount the if you get the right adapter, like I've talked about on the last show, you can mount the umbrellas and stuff to them. But so this, you can put modifiers and all kinds of stuff on it.
Yeah, this comes with the ones I'm getting. Will have the Bones mount, which is travel lights and Bones lights. That's what I use in the studio. So all my beauty dish and all my light modifiers will fit in perfectly. And look at the price, $167. And I already had it in my hand, and we played with it. It's for the money they're charging, it's a very good feel. It's not like so clumsy a feel.
So is it? I'm just looking here. Is this a strobe or is it continuous?
Continuous. That's the good part of it. Think about using 100 watt electricity and having 600 watt equivalent of light when you're photographing families with children.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
They're all like running around. You don't have to worry about
no strobe.
Yeah, no strobe. And what would be here's what made me think of getting this. When you photograph babies or children, the flash bothers their eyes. When you photograph dogs, flash pop bothers them. When they walk into an environment already lit, you're taking pictures they are not even aware of. That opens a whole new level. Even if you had like $3, $4, $5, $10,000 pro photo kit, you can shoot like 8, 9 frames without any lag on your strobes.
Right.
Still, you're popping that flash. Here,
Right.
it opens a whole new level of studio photography for us.
Yeah, this is really cool, and it looks like most of the unit is actually built around cooling, which is good because being an LED nerd, I know that these LED modules, where they have this unified module, what happens the most is they overheat, and over time the module itself burns out, and it looks like there's pretty extensive cooling in this.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, hey, I'm gonna try one, and it's for $167. I mean, come on, that's a that's amazing. So that's very cool. And gosh, I mean, you could run this off an inverter in your truck if you needed to. 100 watts is not much. You could run 3 of these off a $50 inverter. So lots of potential there. Okay, I will throw a couple final ones in, and then we'll wrap up, and everybody can say where they can find each other at. I'm gonna throw out real quick. The first is the Epson LabelWorks LW400. This is about a $30 label printer, so let's do something a little bit on the more budget line. And this is really cool because it produces these kind of semi-waterproof, really nice labels. I have label printers fairly frequently because I'm an herbalist, so I make ointments and herbs and things like that. And when you're dealing with herbs, you label everything. You want to make sure you're taking the right thing. But I also keep one in the studio, and I use it for sending out packages and DVDs and stuff like that. But I picked up one of these on an Amazon deal, and it's really handy for when you don't want to go to a computer and make a label and open the template and all that. And you just grab the thing. It has a little QWERTY keyboard built into it. You turn it on. You type in what you want to say. You can do multiple lines. And it's really phenomenal because if you just want to quickly make a label to put your name on your equipment or something like that, it just sits there on the counter. It takes AA batteries or AAAs. You just turn it on, you print a little label, and you stick it on. It's not for high volume. It's not for like your everyday print 1,000 labels kind of thing. It's just a quick, inexpensive labeler that's not the old style where it punches it out of the plastic. It actually prints a thermal label right out, and it looks good. It's not color, nothing like that. It just works. And so I will link that in the show notes. Sweet. And also, just making notes here what I have to link later. I finally added this into my arsenal, and I should have done it a long time ago, and that is the Triplite 1500. Smart 1500 is the one that I'm using, and it's a 900-watt UPS power supply backup. And I actually did have a power outage recently, and not only does it filter your power, when the power outage goes out, everything stays up. It was amazing. The whole neighborhood went dark, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, wow, my computer's still on. And it will keep my whole system up for about 15 minutes to finish whatever I need to do. And one of the reasons I bought it is I was having a lot of power problems in terms of noise. The speakers and stuff, they were clicking and popping. I even called Mackie. I bought a new set of studio monitors from Mackie, which were really nice, but even they were having the same problem. And sound is important when I'm editing video and stuff and podcasts and things like that. And so it was really driving me crazy, this weird clicky stuff. I finally narrowed down that it was not the computer causing it, and the only thing I could come up with was it must be the power that's just not very clean here. And so not only did the Triplite give me a backup, but it also is filtering that power really well, and the clicking immediately went away as soon as I put that filtered power on there. So this is about $150. You can buy cheaper and more expensive ones, of course, but this one is working quite well, and it has enough power to keep my Mac Pro running, my 30-inch display, my 20-inch display, the speakers. I mean, everything can stay up. It has quite a bit of juice, and it's a nice unit. And with that, one more, and that is I finally went to carbon fiber tripod legs. I don't know what I was waiting for, but I've used Enduro tripods, and I love my Enduro head, and there's other great brands out there too, of course, but Enduro I've always found has a good value for the money, and I picked up a CT213 8X carbon fiber, and it's just wonderful. I mean, it's a good sturdy tripod in that kind of mid-size range. It's about 64 inches high, and it's so light. The metal doesn't get that cold aluminum metal like you do when you're in the cold, and it's just a great tripod, and it's about $300, so of course it's a little more expensive, but if you've been lugging around a big heavy metal tripod and you're like me and you should have switched a long time ago, this is a great carbon fiber tripod, and I think that pretty much covers it. I got some other cool things, but we'll save those for next time. Does anybody else have any final pick that they just thought of that they want to throw out, or have we covered it? I think everybody's broke at this point.
I'm broke.
Okay. Well, hey, we've been going for a while here. It's getting a little bit long, but great Christmas episode. I mean, I think we kind of opened up with some great thoughts about the state of the industry and some business tips. Then we rambled on for a while about technology, but it's been a while since we really got up to speed on that. And then we just got a whole bunch of picks, and you can find the links for those over at prophotoshow.net. So I just want to, from my family to everybody out there in the Pro Photo Show family, hey, Merry Christmas to everybody. Stay safe in the snow, or in Jason's case, in luxurious warmth and comfort, sipping sodas on the beach and wrangling bugs. But wherever you are, see, Jason, I get revenge with Jason because, yes, we have winter, but we also have fall color, Jason.
So
yeah.
So in any case, hey, Merry Christmas to everybody. Where can they find all you guys? If you got workshops or projects or products you want to plug, hey, throw them out there. So Gokhan, where can they find you?
My work website is gokanweddings.com.
And so it's GOKHAN.
Weddings.com. That's where that's my main website for work. And as I mentioned, I am not doing any workshops anymore, at least unless there is like somebody put a gun on my head and say, hey, you got to teach me this.
Right.
With a small group of photographers, we started a photography collective just a couple of months ago, and it's called Magna Collective. It's the website is still in the works. It's going to be magnacollective.com, MAGNA collective.com. Our focus will be telling human condition, telling stories of people, the society, and whatever outside of our usual work.
Right.
So photojournalistic and
Magna Collective, do I have that right?
Yeah, Magna, MAGNA.
Excellent. Okay. Now, is this site not up yet? Because I'm not getting a site right now.
Yeah, it's still in the works. Yes, it is still in the works. We're putting this together, and it's going to have an Instagram account as well, which is incredible because that's where, according to latest research, your photography is 9 times more visible than anything else when it's on Instagram.
Wow.
So, yeah, definitely. It is 13 photographers put together, and we will be documenting different stories. I've been working on a project last 2 years actually. It's coming up soon. Do you want to hear about it?
Yeah.
I was wondering what would be a cool project to do, and I said, what would it be to be, how would it be to be a communist in the most anti-communist country in the world? And I photographed, several people and interviewed them from an objective point of view.
Right.
And that story is coming up early 2016. It's been about 2 years of work and different projects in mind, just like photojournalism, and see
just
look
people
at,
and personalities and
exactly.
Yeah.
Look at things from an outside and see how it is actually. And it was pretty intense, especially my childhood was spent next door to Soviet Union. Like whenever you hear a tire popping, you think Soviet invasion,
Right.
And it was a quite interesting project, and I'm happy how it turned out, to be honest with you.
So, are these videos you're going to be posting on Magna Collective? Or?
Not videos, photography.
Okay, excellent.
So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so that once that site goes live, then they'll be able to see all that over there.
Yes, there is a since it is not 100% confirmed yet, there is a very respected international publication interested in publishing this story for the first time.
Right.
So it may not be on the Magna Collective as as soon as the website goes live.
Sure.
But it will be probably the first quarter of next year. It'll be online for sure.
Excellent. Okay, and where can they find you? From your website, can they find you on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff?
Uh, Facebook, I actually close my Facebook to just like family and close friends now.
Sure.
And as you know, I stepped down from Chicago Photographic Society when we found out we were becoming parents. So I wanted to focus more into a
Right.
family and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
basically, my work website also has an extension into Instagram, Gokhan Weddings
Right.
Chicago on the Instagram, and same thing with the Google Plus. I love what I get from Google Plus in terms of business and SEO.
Sure.
So Facebook, you have to pay them very,
Yeah. Tell me about it.
very dearly to get anything out of it. And to be honest with you, as a small business owner, I had to give it a try, and I did, and it didn't turn out well for me. And it's okay.
Right.
I like how Google Plus works for my business, and that's about it.
Well, Facebook's tough. I mean, look, I can speak to this firsthand, and it took me years to get Facebook profitable. But boy, I can't. It would be hard to make it profitable to actually pay to get leads for weddings and stuff. I mean, I've given Facebook. I don't know. I'm just looking here. This year, probably, ouch. $80,000 is what I've paid to Facebook this year in ads, and that's for my products, and I've dialed them in and made them profitable. But if you want to get seen, you pay, and so especially in a competitive world of the photography, I don't really promote my wall portraits and stuff there. I mean, get that organic customer service based stuff as much as possible.
Hey,
Jason, go ahead. Somebody
me?
have,
Oh yeah, I was saying in Chicago politics we say pay to play. That's what Facebook is.
yes, it is. It's very much like Chicago politics. Jason, where can they find you at?
EldridgePhoto.com.
ELDRIDGE.
That's correct. ELDRIDGE and photo. If you can't spell photo, we probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast. But
now. And so you got your blog and your upcoming workshops and any products, everything you got is right over there.
That's right. I'm going to be doing workshops, it looks like, in the Great Smoky Mountains this year.
Nice.
And I may try to put something together for the end of the year out west somewhere. I've just got to find a spot and a time to do that. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up this year as far as workshops and all that kind of stuff. The blog is relatively active. Once or twice a week I post on it. I have lots of different kinds of information, so please go check it out and leave comments. Let me know that somebody's looking.
Very cool. All right, so check it out. And, of course, as always, you can find me at seimeffects.com, SEIM effects.com, and you can also get to my main website for my pictorials on f164.com and stuff like that. But most of my content is going to seimeffects.com, educational articles and things like that. And so I'll just keep it simple. Head over there, check out the new Power Workflow 5, and if you want to enhance your craft, check out the workshops like Exposed and Photographics and things like that, and start digging deeper into those studies. And check out some of these workshops hands-on, like myself is bringing this year, like Jason's doing, and get out there. Gokhan, I think you had one more thing you wanted to throw in there real quick.
Yeah, going to Imaging USA in Atlanta in January
Excellent.
with two of my Magna member friends. We're going to be going to Imaging USA about like 10 or 11
Right. You there?
actually, and then it's going to be a nice road trip from Chicago to Atlanta.
So if anybody's going to Imaging USA, watch out for you.
Yeah, I am here. Are you going there too?
I'm probably not going to make it this year in January. I just got a lot of stuff going on right now. We're kind of transitioning, trying to set up a new RV, that kind of stuff, and so probably not. Jason, that's kind of not too far from you, so.
Well, sadly, living at the point in Florida that I do, it's 8 hours just to get out of the state. So that's about 12 to 13-hour drive to get to Atlanta. But my January is just absolutely booked up.
Right. Well, it's always fun. So if you guys get a chance, I went to Imaging a couple years ago, and I've been to WPPI and the other ones, and they're all fun. But Imaging is pretty special. They do a pretty good job from my experience, and I found them to be pretty family friendly too. if you're taking the kids and they have these great evening get-togethers with amazing food. I mean, it's just they do pretty good. So PPA and imaging knocks it out of the park usually on those events. So hey, guys, thank you so much for being here. It wasn't a terribly long amount of notice, but we had a great little panel. I'm really glad we got this show out before Christmas. Hope you listeners enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, prophotoshow@gmail.com, or, of course, all our respective websites that were just mentioned. So thank you for listening. Here's to a great 2016. There's lots of neat innovations, I think, going to be coming, and I know I've got some cool ideas in the pipe, so you can stay tuned to my newsletter over on my site to keep everybody pretty informed via that. So thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you next time right here on Pro Photo Show.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys, for being here. All right. And there we go. Okay, phenomenal. Well, I'm going to go offline with the live broadcast, which doesn't have